Okay. All right. Great. And with that, let's go ahead and begin. I will ask that you please save your questions. I will pause during certain sections of the presentation and open it up for questions there and all, as well as at the end of the presentation. Okay. So let's start with a little bit about the history. The Donald Payne International Development Fellowship Program was actually founded in 2012 in honor of the late Representative Congressman Donald M. Payne Sr., Democrat from the 10th District of New Jersey. Representative Payne was the first Black American elected to the U.S. Congress from New Jersey. He was elected in November 1988 and served until his death in 2012. He was a senior member of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs and a ranking member of the Subcommittee on Africa, Global Health, and Human Rights, and a member of the Subcommittee of the Western Hemisphere. The fellowship selected its first cohort of fellows in 2013. 3 fellows were selected for the first cohort. We've now expanded our selection up to 30 per year. That includes for this 2024 cycle. And as of March 2023, 119 fellows have been awarded the Payne Fellowship. So as you can tell, we continue to grow and we encourage your applications during this time. So what exactly is the Payne Fellowship? If you joined us here, you want to know a little bit more about it, about the opportunities, benefits, the obligations, and of course, how to apply, right? So the Payne Fellowship, again, is administered by Howard University, and it's under a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Agency for International Development. The fellowship seeks to recruit and select bright minds interested in a career in the USAID's Foreign Service, which is very distinct and different from the Department of State's Foreign Service. So if you're looking at the Payne Fellowship, you should have an interest and intentions to pursue a career with the within USAID's Foreign Service. USAID Foreign Service officers apply their technical knowledge, program design, management, and evaluation expertise to promote and demonstrate democratic values abroad and advance a free, peaceful, and prosperous world. USAID Foreign Service officers work on the front lines of some of the world's most pressing global challenges of our times, including things such as environmental degradation, education and health crisis, conflict and violent extremism, peace and security, and humanitarian emergencies. All of the Payne Fellows, once they're awarded the fellowship, and again, if you get the fellowship, you get the job there. So that's very important to note. You'll probably hear me echo this throughout. But all of the Payne Fellows have a career track or a career backstop in which they'll be going into USAID's Foreign Service. And what's great about it is that there's such a breadth of opportunity for those of you who may have like many interests and aren't sure exactly what you'd like to pursue your graduate degree in. These here are some of the USAID backstops. So everything from, as you can see, like a BS-10, agriculture officers, economists, general development officers, population, health, and nutrition for those of you interested in health, education officers, humanitarian assistance, crisis stabilization and governance, legal officers. I can go on and on here, as you can see here. Environmental officers, engineering, private enterprise, program officers, executive officers, financial management officers. The list goes on and on. So dependent upon your interest, and again, it's what's also beautiful about the Payne Fellowship is that we do not have an undergraduate degree major requirement, i.e. there's no specification that you have to come from political science or that you have to have a technical undergraduate degree. But your interests must lie, again, in the career of the USAID's Foreign Service. So long as your pursuit for graduate studies is in an area of relevance to the USAID's Foreign Service, which means, if your degree could be relevant, if you're looking at public health, population health and nutrition, and PHs, public health degrees, right? If you're looking at financial management or executive, possibly, MBAs, Masters of Business Administrations, right? And we'll work with you. Our staff will work with you in the confirmation process with USAID backstop coordinators there. So start to think about the backstop of your interests now, if you're considering this fellowship opportunity. Speaking about the fellowship opportunity, what other way than to start with the benefits? So one of the great things about the Payne Fellowship program is that we award a substantial amount of money. The award is up to $104,000 over 2 years, and that includes everything for tuition fees, living expenses, as well as support for 2 summer internships. The breakout works out to be up to $24,000 per year for tuition and mandatory fees. Please note that we have a list of graduate program partners, and that list is continuously expanding, that have agreed to provide additional supplemental funding to our fellows who are admitted into their programs and agree and commit to go. So in some cases, a lot of our fellows may end up paying nothing out of pocket when combined with the funding that we provide, that $24,000 per year. So first year 1 of graduate school and year 2 of graduate school, $24,000 for tuition mandatory fees, or nothing at all in some cases. We also provide an $18,000 living stipend per year, which is issued directly to the fellow, those who are awarded the fellowship. So what that would mean is that 24, again, going for tuition and mandatory fee support directly to your institution. And then the other 18,000 is issued directly to you as the fellow to help support with living expenses, and things like that, so you can focus on your academic studies during that year. It's not a lot, but it can definitely help there. We also provide up to $10,000 per year towards 2 summer internships, and this includes housing and round-trip transportation. So the first internship is a congressional internship in Washington, D.C., and that is a 1 week 1 week orientation at the end of May. And then the congressional internship begins after that for 9 weeks. So all in, the first summer experience is a 10-week experience there. And we provide that round trip transportation to and from DC, as well as housing during the summer for all of our fellows, in addition to a personal stipend that we provide as well for each of those internships. The second is a 10-week overseas internship, and that takes place in between your first and second year of graduate school. During that time, our fellows will go overseas to a USAID mission, and they'll have a firsthand exposure and look at what it is to be a development foreign service officer working for USAID. A lot of them tend to do work within their relative backstops, but every experience for the interns for our fellows, as they go overseas, is different and unique to them and their career interests and things there. And that is also covered round-trip transportation, emergency medical insurance, and housing is provided by the USAID mission. For the application, it focuses on your interest, again, in working for USAID. If you're applying to this fellowship program, you should have an interest in working for the U.S. Agency for International Development, as ultimately, if you receive the fellowship, it culminates with employment for USAID. Your interests, of course, should be centered around development as well, and should express a preparedness for graduate school, i.e., you are ready to pursue your master's at a 2-year program at a U.S.-based institution. Some things to note, and especially if you're considering applying for the 2024 cohort and cycle, our application is currently open, so that's great. You haven't missed the deadline yet. It is quickly approaching with a little bit under 3 weeks to go. It closes October 26, 2023, which is a Thursday, everyone. Please note that. Thursday, October 26, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I promise you, you will not get tired of me saying that throughout this presentation. We will do a selection finalists in early December 2023. So all of our 60 finalists, we will select 60 finalists for who we will invite to interview for the virtual final round interviews. They will be notified prior to the holiday break there. So we expect all the notifications, schedule confirmations, et cetera, to happen prior to December 15th. And that'll be when the selection of the 60 finalists will be made. In January 2024 is when we will have our interviews. That includes our writing assessment, and our final round virtual interviews and group exercise. And we'll also do the notifications and, of course, the fellowship awards to all of those who were interviewed, the 30 awards there. Following that, we will have orientation at Howard University in May 2024. That'll be a 1-week orientation there. And then our fellows go into that 9-week domestic internship, which is the congressional internship experience there. So all in 10 weeks during the summer, and then you start your first year of graduate school. So I'll take a second to pause, and I see I have a couple of questions in the chat here. So I'm gonna go ahead and answer them here. So I see first one regarding a recent PhD graduate eligible for the fellowship. So yeah, so if you already possess advanced degrees, we do not, there's no bar on you applying to the fellowship program. We do note that you must have completed your advanced degrees already. Please note that you will, if your intentions are to apply to the fellowship, and you receive the fellowship award, you will have to pursue an additional, of course, this is a graduate fellowship program, an additional master's degree program there. And it will have to be a two-year full-time, traditionally full-time master's degree program at a US-based institution in an area of relevance to USAID's foreign service. So just note that. And then after that 2-year program would be when you would start your career for an onboarding with USAID. Another question here, are current grad students eligible, or students who have taken a few grad level courses already? So if current, again, my previous answer for current graduate students would apply here as well. You would have to complete the degree first in order to be eligible for the fellowship program. If you're a grad student who have taken a few you're admitted to a program, but let's say you haven't completed the program and you have courses, but you don't owe the school any balance, X, Y, and Z. You are, yes, you can apply to the fellowship program, but it cannot, again, the funding cannot be used with the intentions on finishing the degree program at said school where you started. Please note that you will have to be looking to pursue a completely different degree in an area of relevance to USAID's foreign service. So starting again from the beginning for that 2 years master's degree program there. I have a question here. Are we bound to the backstop we select if we are awarded the fellowship? So backstop. So how the backstop works, if you're currently applying to the fellowship, those of you who are working through the application, I'm sure you've noticed that we've asked you to specify some career backstop choices of interest, preference 1 and preference 2. You are not bound to what you select in your application. We just want to see where our prospective applicants or candidates are looking in regards to their area of relevance for USAID's foreign service. Now, once you let's say you receive the award to the fellowship program, and we are in the onboarding process. Once we begin the onboarding process, we will require you to submit your acceptances for the degree programs that you're seriously considering. And we will need to send those pieces up to our colleagues at USAID. We have a series of colleagues who are backstop coordinators. So they're the ones who assist us with doing confirmations on our fellows graduate degree programs, i.e. they're the ones ensuring that the graduate program has the competencies or essentially the competencies, its relevance for backstop, let's say BS 11, which I believe it was educate. Let me not lie, economist, an economist backstop, right? If you're studying plant and soil sciences, they're not gonna, and you have an interest in being an economist, and you're submitting plant and soil sciences degree program. Apologies for someone who's barking very loudly in the back. But if you're submitting plant and soil sciences for the degree program, and your aspirations are to be an economist, I mean, I don't believe that those two would be necessarily applicable, right? So the backstop coordinator may say, hey, that won't work here for this backstop, but it may be applicable for, I don't know, I'm not a backstop coordinator, so I cannot confirm. This is just a hypothetical example, but it may be applicable for agriculture, right? Et cetera. So there's just that rule for thought there. Because you apply separately to the graduate programs, again, it is important that you become familiar with the USAID career backstops, and make sure as you're applying to the programs, that you're applying to some programs that may have a relation to said backstop, if that makes sense. Our staff can work with you. And again, we work with all of our fellows through the confirmation process. It's not as daunting as it sounds, or as finite. There's been times where a academic degree program is applicable for multiple backstops, and the fellow took some time, usually about like the first semester, first year, et cetera, to really see which career backstop they wanted to confirm there. And we work with them in updating that choice there. So hopefully that answers your question. I know it's really a roundabout way, but I thought it was necessary to give in-depth background in substance there. Does another question here from the chat? Does Payne matter if it's a master's in science or master of arts? No. So our requirement is not on the type like MS or MA, because again, we also cover MBAs, and the main requirement is that it be a 2-year full-time, traditionally in person. So it can't be a publicized like a hybrid type of degree program. In person full-time. What else? And it also, again, must be in area of relevance to one of the career backstops for USAID's Foreign Service. So sometimes the program might be a MPA, MPP, MS, MA, MED, in some cases. So it just depends there. But yes, it just needs to be that 2-year full-time at a US-based institution. Other questions coming in. So will we need acceptance into a master's program before we begin, before being able to receive a Payne graduate fellowship? So yes, so you apply separately to graduate school from our fellowship program. So you should be looking at graduate programs and applying to them and meeting those deadlines, applications, et cetera, as you're looking to apply to our fellowship program and applying and meeting our deadlines, et cetera, simply because the timeline for the Payne Fellowship, again, our notifications, we're usually mid to late January there. The deadlines for graduate programs are quickly approaching. They tend to be early February. I think some of the latest ones usually around March. So yes, you will need to apply separately, because you don't want to run afoul and miss a graduate program deadline and can't get into a graduate school, but you receive the fellowship program. That means we won't be able you won't be able to accept it because your requirement, again, as part of the eligibility, is looking to begin and start that program in fall 2024. Hopefully that answers your question. Another question here. Oh, wow, they're just coming in. Okay, so guys, what I'm going to do is pause on the questions in the chat for a second, and I'm going to transition into the rest of the presentation here. I have some very important information, and hopefully it actually sums up quite a few of the questions in the chat, such as, oh, here, look, I'm talking all this stuff here, and I can't, the slide isn't working. Okay, such as, how to apply. Okay, there we go. Excellent. So there are some things for those of you who are seriously considering the Payne Fellowship opportunity you need to know in regards to applying to the opportunity. The first thing is you must possess U.S. citizenship. Dual citizens are also welcome to apply, but you must use your U.S. passport and U.S. citizenship credentials in the application process. And if you're awarded the fellowship throughout your time in tenure, throughout the fellowship and working for USAID. Applicants should also have a cumulative 3.2 GPA on a 4.0 scale. And again, you should be planning to enroll in a 2-year graduate program in fall 2024 at a US-based institution in an area of relevance to USAID's foreign service. Some acceptable majors include, but are not limited to, the following: international affairs, humanitarianism, economics, history, political science, public administration, communications, public policy, security, business administration, foreign languages, agriculture, environmental sciences, and urban planning, to name a few, right? You'll also need 2 letters of recommendation, one being from a former professor or current professor for those of you still in school, or faculty member, and another from a professional or community recommender there. So 2 letters of recommendation if you're currently in school, i.e. a graduating senior, again, current faculty member, and another recommender will do, or it could be another faculty member, community advisor, et cetera, et cetera. If you are an alumni or professional, you're several years removed from undergrad, you're not sure if your faculty are still around, it's fine. We'll accept 2 letters of recommendation. It could be from a manager, supervisor, director, et cetera. But please note that the individuals that you are selecting to recommend you should be able to speak to several things. The first is your interest in USAID and pursuing a career for USAID, specifically the Foreign Service, if possible, right? They should know, okay, you're applying for this fellowship and you're interested in this piece, as it is a pathway for a career in USAID's Foreign Service. Again, cannot stress that enough. And second, they should be able to speak to your preparedness for graduate school. So those are the 2, I said several, those are the 2 things that should really stand out there within your letters of recommendation. If you're not a current student, and even if you are a current student, you want to make sure that the faculty or your recommenders are hitting those 2 pieces. Again, preparedness for graduate school and your interest in a career of the USAID's Foreign Service. Updated resume. We do require your official transcripts from all colleges and universities attended. We do it this way just because it's easier, just in case we have a GPA verification that we would like to do, or we need to take into account other transcripts. It's best to have them all versus just one or X, Y, and Z, and then we're reviewing it and we require your study abroad transcript X, Y, and Z. So please gather all of your transcripts, especially if your grades from any study abroad or any institutions that were transferred into your home institution, i.e. the place where you're graduating or have graduated from, aren't showing as like grade A, grade B, X, Y, and Z. So please remember. At the application stage, we are accepting unofficial transcripts, so you can upload your unofficial transcripts at the application stage. If you are selected as a finalist, again, we will require you to send in your official transcript, so you could also make it easier on yourself and send in your official transcripts. Personal statement. So in 600 words or less, detailing the reasons for applying, your interest in foreign affairs, and a commitment to a career in USAID's Foreign Service. I cannot stress this enough. If you're looking at our fellowship program, this opportunity, this $104,000 over 2 years, up to $104,000 over 2 years. You should have the intentions and an interest in development and a career in pursuing, interest in pursuing a career with USAID's Foreign Service. And lastly, a statement of in 400 words or less that indicates your statement of financial need here, indicates the need for financial assistance to continue graduate studies, or in many cases, to begin your graduate studies there. So let's talk about the personal statement really quick. So I said in 600 words or less. This is a key component of the application process. This is the one area aside from the area where you can list your accolades, right? Your bragging area. Even there, depending upon how you list them, it may not convey the actual interests and your passions, right, for the fellowship. So going back to it, this is the one area for you to really shine into talk about your motivations in your preparation. So motivations, why do you want to be a development foreign service officer with the U.S. Agency for International Development? Let us know. Preparations, what have you done that would make you successful? What do you bring, or what will you bring to the next cohort of Payne Fellows? Some examples of relevant experiences include international studies, this could be living, working, or travel, international or multicultural experience within the US, including your family relations, any experiences with overcoming obstacles that show resilience and resourcefulness, working with various cultural or socioeconomical groups, your public service experience, either work, internship, or community, being a community volunteer, other internship, community volunteer work experience in government, NGOs, service organizations, or different business enterprises, academic or other learning experiences, including research, be it independent or with faculty. And then, of course, your leadership experience in academic work or volunteer type of setting. So this, again, just some examples, not saying you have to hit all of these things or you have to have all of these things. We understand, and especially, several years ago, how could we forget that COVID, the pandemic, right, where the whole world was essentially shut down, and this type of cultural, the engagement and the exchange was no longer in person. It became very much virtual, right? So think about your virtual experiences or the things that you've done locally within your own communities there as well. I'm going to pause for a second and go back to the questions in the chat. Let's see. All right. Okay, I have a question here. Does the person need to be a recent graduate, or whoever has an undergraduate degree is eligible? Yes, so they can, applicants can be either a current senior, i.e. You must be graduating in May 2024, or you can be recent alumni or alumni. I would just say alumni. You must possess your bachelor's degree in May 2024. You should have your bachelor's degree essentially before orientation is to begin. Again, because you will be looking to start your graduate studies in fall 2024 there. Okay, I have a question here regarding the writing assessment. So the writing assessment is part of the final round selection process. I can't give you too many details. We do provide information to our finalists regarding how to prepare for the final round assessments and some materials there. What I can tell you, again, the selection process is a virtual selection process and has been a virtual selection process since, I believe, 2021. Yes, pandemic. And what that means is that we do proctored writing assessment examination We have a vendor that we work closely with to proctor the exam, the timed writing assessment examinations. And those assessments are then, those essays are then given to the writing panel to review and score in our final round process there. Okay. Question here. If interested in pursuing a master's in international affairs, the preference over regional versus functional concentration that will better fit USAID qualifications, or does it only matter that it applies to a specific backstop? It's a great question. So if you're interested in international affairs, we've have fellows who have pursued and actually received MAs in international affairs and then applied that to different, because the degree is applicable to, could be applicable to several different backstops. They weighed their options and then said, okay, this is more of the substantive type of work that I'm interested in, and applied that degree towards, whatever backstop that the coordinators aligned to it. So it depends. It depends on your interest, I would really say. We can have an offline, conversation if there's some programs that you'd like to share, just to see and talk through like, hey, how would this look like? The biggest piece is for you is having a clear understanding of the type of work that you're trying to do. So that's why our advice, our staff typically advises to become very familiar with the USAID backstops. So you can see the type of work that an ag officer does, and you can see, okay, well, does this align with what the areas that I want to be? And the reason why is because the USAID coordinators, we don't want to say that this degree, and this degree are the only degrees applicable for said backstop, when we know that knowledge can comes in its many different forms and perspectives there. So yeah, we can have we can talk about that. But yeah, there's no emphasis or it has to be so specific as Arab, let me see, like Latin American studies in Southeast, I don't know, Brazil, I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. But yes, hopefully that answers your question. Are some backstops more competitive than others for the fellowship, i.e. crisis backstop is popular, but agriculture not? More competition among people who choose crisis as a preferred? Great question. So we do, in the fellow selection process, your backstop choices, preferences that you may list in your application, there are not a consideration or barring or anything like that in the fellow or finalist selections process. So for example, what does that mean? It probably sounds really, really muddled now that I'm thinking about it and playing it back in my head. What you may think that your interest is at this stage may not actually be your interest, right? By the end of the selection process, and we understand that. So our fellowship, the selection process does not take into consideration your backstop preferences as a weighting scoring type of component there. So it doesn't. If you have a backstop interest in crisis stabilization governance, it would not make you more competitive or less competitive than an ag backstop, a fellow with an ag backstop interest, if that makes sense. We've had, and again, for the person who asked this question here, once the backstops are confirmed through the coordinators, or once you submit your academic programs, and we send them over to our backstop coordinators, who will go through and start confirming, okay, this is good for this backstop, this degree program, da 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 da. In some cases, your 1 degree program, not saying in all cases, again, but in some cases, your degree program may be applicable for multiple backstops. So again, it would be on you as the fellow, hey, which career track, which one would you be interested in, X, Y, and Z. So there's no competitive, like, oh, we're better than this, X, Y, and Z. Every cohort we've noticed changes, in how the makeup of the cohort. Some years will have higher interests or higher individuals who are program officers, administrative, right? We'll have some who are more public health officers one year. Other years we'll have an executive officer or contracting officer. But yes, so it really just all depends. But what's beautiful about the fellowship program is that there isn't an emphasis given in our selection process to pit one backstop against the other. So come, bring your interest. I'm gonna answer a few more questions here, and then I'm gonna go back to the presentation. What are some of the master's programs that would be eligible? For example, would MPH work, or does it have to be international affairs? That's a great question, Hema. So again, Payne program, a breadth of different career backstops, right? So if you're interested in like public health, public nutrition health officer, an MPH, Masters of Public Health, sounds like it would be pretty applicable there. And a lot of our nutrition, our fellows who are in that category have looked into those types of programs. So yeah, there's no, like, again, that MS, MPH, MBA, X, Y, and Z. If the biggest piece is that the academic program has a relevance to one of the USAID career backstops. So again, getting as familiar as you can with the backstops that closely align with your career interests. So if you're, again, you use MPH, so health, right? Look at the population health and nutrition officer backstop. Visit our website, visit USAID's website, see if they have excerpts, X, Y, and Z, things like that. See if the type of work that they're doing is what you essentially want to do, et cetera. And take it from there. So becoming familiar with the backstops is key and critical in your interest in our fellowship, because you want to make sure that, again, if you get the fellowship, you get the job, and ultimately you will be going into said backstop there. All right, so with that, I'm going to pause on the questions in the chat. Thank you all. These are great questions. I'm going to flip back over to our presentation, and let's talk a little bit about the financial statement. So I mentioned that the financial statement is required for the application. It's 400 words or less. It's shorter than the 600-word personal statement that you get. So you want to make sure that you are clear and concise within your statement of financial need. What's important is that you discuss the relevant issues that are not obvious from the numbers. Please note that we do require submission of the FAFSA student aid report. Okay, and the years that we're currently accepting are 8-year 2022, 2023, or it hasn't opened yet. I don't believe it has opened yet. Or 2023, 2024. It typically opens now, but some of you might have received notifications that the 2023, 2024 FAFSA application won't be opening up until December. So the one that is currently open, I believe, is still 2022, 2023. If you have not done so already, please start your FAFSA. It does take about a week to up to 2 weeks, et cetera, depending upon your individual situation and the porting over of information from the IRS. If you decide to elect that piece there, verification time for processing in the rendering of this actual student aid report. So you don't want to run up on the application deadline and that student aid report isn't ready, because that is a required component, an asterisk required component to the Payne Fellowship program. So again, in the financial statement, you want to be sure to discuss relevant issues that, again, are not obvious from the numbers reported on the FAFSA student aid report. This could be decisions other than loans to ease the cost of undergraduate studies, including the choice of universities. Did you stay in-state? Did you start at a community college, to your community college, and then transferred to another institution? Did you have to work during school? Any other scholarships, merit or professional, et cetera, that you had to receive in order to help subsidize or supplement the cost of education for your undergraduate studies? You can also provide background and context on your family, your social not excuse me socioeconomic background, and challenges. Again, what I will caution about this piece here is that you don't want to make it a woe is me. Oh, I didn't have, gas money to get to such and such, and I didn't have such and such. You don't want to have that type of narrative. So be, again, very clear and concise in your narrative for this piece. But if these things are major considering factors, etc., please share, tell us about it. But be clear and concise in your narrative of including those things. Communicate issues that explain why, again, tell us what the numbers don't convey, why the reported income on the FAFSA student aid report is not representative of your current situation. These things could be changes in your income and job. Again, things to note for me will always be the pandemic, right? That shift there, and the status since the last tax year, cost, or the unavailability of funding for graduate school. And another major contender is your independence from your family, right? Family might have said, hey, we'll support you or assist with your undergraduate pursuit of your undergraduate degree, but graduate school, you may be on your own, right? And then also some things to consider as well as you're crafting the statement of financial need, graduate school related issues, right? Just estimated costs of attendance, they continue to soar. You're not working, you won't have that family support. Those are some things to consider there as you're working on this piece. So with that, I'm going to, I'll cover this slide and then I'm going to jump back over to the questions in the chat. So here are some tips for preparing competitive applications. First, review all the application requirements to ensure your eligibility and prepare to apply. Again, for the Payne Fellowship program, should be a U.S. citizen. Again, dual citizens are welcome to apply. U.S. citizen by the application deadline, which is Thursday, October 26, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You should have that 3.2 GPA on a 4.0 scale. And you should be looking to pursue your graduate degree in an area of relevance to USAID's Foreign Service. Again, there's a gambit there, depending upon your interests, health, engineering, environment, business, you name it. In fall 2024 at a two-year full-time degree program at a US-based institution. You say so much, I'm telling you, sometimes it just runs on a record and you skip. Eventually it's going to happen. Then next, explain in your statement of interest, can't hark on this enough, your motivations for applying and identify your background, your experiences and skills to be a successful development foreign service officer. Also, remember your preparedness for graduate school, etc. Brag about yourself a little bit here. You love USAID, can't wait to be a development foreign service officer. Think about those things. You want to demonstrate your academic ability and your rigor in studies. We do give you an area on the application to indicate awards, accolades, things like that. That'll be an area if you've done any research, publications, consortium, presentations for research, etc. Or papers that have scored really well or been, disseminated within your department, et cetera. I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here. There'd be a number of different things, right? That you can list there to show about that academic ability, the types of courses, if it's advanced language courses, et cetera. Obtaining strong letters of recommendation. Reminder, you are required to have 2 letters of recommendation for current students. One should be from a current faculty member, professor, that can really speak to your preparedness for graduate school and your interest in a career in USAID's Foreign Service. And the second should be from a community member or another faculty member, someone else who can, again, speak to those same types of qualities in your passions there and your intentions. For those who are alumni or are, several years out, professional prospective candidates, same thing goes, 2 letters of recommendation. If you cannot get in touch with faculty from your undergraduate institution, again, these can be from community members, supervisors, management, et cetera, at your employer. But again, the key and critical piece there is speaking to your interests in U.S. aid and your preparedness for graduate school. I caution against going in for asking for a letter of recommendation from an individual who just has a high title, but you have not really had any engagement. So please, 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 I beg you all, please, uh, um, don't title grab when you're seeking your letters of recommendation. Please go to the individuals who can brag about you and who are excited for this opportunity for you. Not just the dean of the college because he's the dean of the college and it looks good because he's the dean of the college. It may look good title wise, but if he's, you want to get someone, if it's not substance there, then those will be the things to consider, as that is a section that is scored for our panel, your letters of recommendation there. Again, demonstrate the need for financial assistance for graduate school. Be clear, be concise, and convey what the numbers do not show. I'll leave you with that. Include all relevant extracurricular, community, or volunteer experiences and highlight your leadership roles. Again, you're applying for a nationally competitive fellowship opportunity, so brag about yourself. Let us know if you were president or you volunteered at such and such event and the impact there, right? These are the things that can really help set you apart from other applicants. Again, list all relevant college, university, or professional awards and honors. We give you that section there. And lastly, proofread all aspects of the application carefully and submit all application materials on time. Please submit them all on time. Do not wait until Thursday, October 26th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you in other areas, time zones, do not wait until that period to submit your application. It will always happens. The system will slow up or crash in some cases because there's an influx of everyone trying to do it right before the application deadline. So if you are still waiting to submit, etc., don't wait. Work on your pieces. You have a little bit under 3 weeks, just about 3 weeks left. Submit the application. If it's your letter of recommenders, follow up with them. All application materials need to be in by the application deadline. Please follow up with your recommenders. If you're having issues or if your recommenders are noting issues with the recommender link, please email paynefellows@howard.edu, and I'll drop this in the chat as well. And I actually have a couple more slides for you all. But before continuing on, I want to turn back over to some of these questions here in the chat. So question here, is it possible to do an exchange program for a semester or a year through our university as a fellow? So that's a good question. So long as whatever program, like the academic program that you're doing, again, the main requirement is being at the US-based institution, and it's a 2-year full-time, right? We don't typically bother, is what I'll say. We don't bother our fellows typically during the academic year. We do have certain items that we require that we inevitably will need them to complete as part of compliance and making sure that they're ushering through so they can be onboarded within USAID's Foreign Service on time and as the fellowship award states. But yeah, so it would really just depend. The exchange can't conflict with your fellowship obligations is essentially what I'm trying to say. So if there's some type of exchange that happens during the actual academic semester, like the fall semester or the spring semester, etc., and it doesn't compete with like your overseas internship, which takes place between that first and second year of graduate school, or any of the mandatory, like, professional development pieces that we may have to that we will do for you all, then yeah, there usually isn't an issue there. And again, we can work with you if those are opportunities that you're looking at. We've seen a number of different things come across in past cohorts as well. How exactly does one show financial need for graduate studies? Elza, so yes, going back to this piece here, so variety of different ways, right? Discuss the relevant issues that are different from what is reported on your student aid report, right? So if your student aid report lists that your expected family contribution is $1 million, I don't know, obviously you come from very good means, right? But your parents aren't. They're like, hey, man, that's their money, right? They're not helping you at all, or you're now independent. um That'd be something to consider there. Again, as the presentation said before, decisions other than loans to ease the cost of your undergraduate studies, your choice of universities, work there. Let's see what else. Provide your background on your context, or your family socioeconomic background, etc. So those are just some examples there. Is there info or resources on what makes USAID FSO so specific and different? Yes. I invite you to visit usaid.gov. Its agency is the U.S. Agency for International Development. It is completely separate and different from the U.S. Department of State. Its missions, goals, and objectives are different. Again, the programming that they offer globally is quite different. In the aid, of course, right, it's in their name, that they provide to different countries, et cetera, there. So it really depends on your substantive interest. Backstop wise, it's more niche focused, whereas Department of State, we have like political, economic management, oh man, public diplomacy, and consular type of officer. Those are all typically functions that support the larger, what's it called? U.S. Political type of interest, right? And more general. So consular officers serving U.S. citizens abroad, right? Immigrants trying to come over to the country, et cetera. So it depends upon your interests. If your interests are more aligned with larger, just like policy, international affairs, and X, Y, and Z. There are other fellowships there, but if your interest is specific to development, and again, development under USAID includes all those relative areas. Let me just go back here a couple of slides. All of these relative career backstop type of areas, right? So ag, econ, again, general development officers, those who are interested in actual, development and what that means and building up urban planning, X, Y, and Z, but aren't niche officers such as the public health officers, et cetera, right? So I invite you again, definitely visit usaid.gov's website, and in the Payne Fellowship's website as well, to learn a little bit more about the backstops. Also, we will be having our backstop week is approaching. It will be beginning the week of December 10th. Oh my gosh, that's next week. So backstop week begins next week, everyone. So please visit back to our website, the application portal. Off to the side, you'll see the upcoming webinars, et cetera. It'll let you know the dates, et cetera, there, and click to join, et cetera. But yes, so next week kicks off our backstop week. Tuesday will be the first day. I do not have the set of backstops in front of me to tell you all. Unfortunately, I deeply apologize. And Thursday are the next two. I believe next week they will be. I'm not sure which days though. Like executive officer, program officer, finance management, and ag, I believe, will be happening next week. Don't. It's a recorded session. Man, I was going to say, don't quote me. But yeah, so I invite you all to please join there. Let's see. Addition to, yes. So how many applicants have there been in the past, and does Payne consider merit-based applications in addition to financial need applications? So The program, again, we selected our first cohort in 2013, like they began in like 2013 there. So we've grown since then. In the beginning, it was only, a couple hundred applications. Last year, we had around 540 plus applications. This year, we are on track to surpass that number by our application deadline, which again is Thursday, October 26th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Lock it in your calendars. Get nationally competitive fellowship opportunity here, right? So being sure that you want to put your best foot forward is what I would really say there. Don't let the number of applicants deter you from applying to the fellowship program. And does Payne consider merit-based applicants in addition to financial need applicants? Yeah, so the fellowship program is a need-based fellowship program. So you must have an express need for financial support for graduate studies and an interest in USAID's foreign service. So like if you said like, you were a scholarship recipient in undergrad, X, Y, and Z, da 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 da. Well, don't think that as a slight towards you not having need for this fellowship for graduate support. Because again, it'd be about how you craft your narrative, right? And many people go to the schools where they receive partial scholarships or full ride scholarships because the cost of education, right? So you received that scholarship, or the institution you attended was due to the fact of you receiving, said scholarship X, Y, and Z. So there's no scoring in the selection process that would provide there's no, like, we don't rank, oh, this is a merit, no, this one was merit based, or and this one is a financial need X, Y, and Z. There's no scoring in regards to that. The scoring is in regard to you being able to show and convey your financial need by providing, again, your FAFSA student aid report for 2022, 2023, or 2023, 2024 academic years. We also ask that you, and if you can, provide your financial aid from your senior year of undergrad. If you're able to provide that, for those of your current students, you can go in your student portal, screenshots, X, Y, and Z, upload that as well in those letters there. Another question here. Do you have to wait until the recommendation is submitted by your recommender to submit your application? Great question. No, you do not. If every other aspect of your application is complete and ready to go, you can go ahead and submit your application. Submit it as final. If your recommenders, because your recommenders they get their own separate system links, essentially, that are initiated once you enter their information and you initiate that request there. They'll get their own separate links to log in and to upload those materials. It is, however, your responsibility to follow up with your recommenders to ensure that they've received said link, that they've checked their junk and spam folders. And if they haven't received said link, and even after you reinitiate the request, so you can go into the system and reinitiate said request to your recommenders. And that essentially means that you're resending them that system link X, Y, and Z with the instructions to log in, and they can upload the letter of recommendation and provide their ratings on your behalf there. You could go ahead and do that. But again, even if you've done that and they're still having issues, then you can direct them to email paynefellows@howard.edu. And we will provide an alternative method for them to complete the rating and to provide their letter of recommendation directly to our staff for us to upload to your application. Once we receive that, if they have to go through the alternative method of submission, right, if they didn't receive the link, our staff will also notify you as the applicant that, hey, we receive this recommendation from this person, or we received all your letters of recommendation if it was just one missing, etc. Yes. Let's see, I have another question here. What backstop would best fit someone who is interested in sustainable development and information technology? It's a great question, Kwame. We can connect offline because there might be quite a few. are all or most careers overseas. So if you're applying for this fellowship opportunity, foreign service officers, their jobs are to be, you're essentially going to be a diplomat. Be it if you're working for the Department of State or you're working for USAID, you're a diplomat. You're representing U.S. interests abroad in said capacity as a development foreign service officer for USAID. And what essentially does that mean, right? Yes, you will have a bulk of your career will be overseas. One thing to note is that our Payne Fellows have a 5-year service obligation to the USAID Foreign Service. So again, as you heard me mentioning throughout the presentation here, if you get the fellowship, you get the job, right? Our fellows do sign a contract with USAID, so they're contractually obligated to, get this, our support, the fellowship, the program. We provide the funding, X, Y, and Z. You're contractually obligated to complete your graduate program and then to begin working for USAID's Foreign Service for 5 years. Typical USAID overseas mission posts, once you enter the Foreign Service, is around 3 years. So, like, typically, typically. There are situations, instances, it could vary, could be 2 year, could be year posting X, Y, and Z, but typically it tends to be 3 years. Whereas Department of State's first, when you go to post as in their foreign service, it's around 2 years there. So if you think about the 5-year service obligation, and please note that once you are awarded the fellowship and you get through the actual graduate fellowship components, the internships, professional development, X, Y, and Z, and you're onboarding with USAID's Foreign Service, you will get, they'll essentially build you up and train you, right, to get you ready for your career as a development foreign service officer and all that means. And then you'll get assigned to your first mission, i.e. your first overseas mission, your first place where you're actually, John Doe Foreign Service Officer at mission, I don't know, Panama, in Panama City, Panama. And, you're going to be doing your first work as a BS-50, Public Health and Nutrition Officer, right? Out there. So you'll probably be stationed there for about 3 years after you get your substantive training. So anything that they'll need you to know, be it language, X, Y, and Z, and things like that, prior to heading to post. Which you'll get also paid for because you'll be a career employee of USAID. Yes, could you please dive more into the career trajectory of a Payne USAID? I'm sorry. Could you please dive more into the career trajectory of a Payne USAID FSO with USAID? To the majority of the fellows, those who have stayed as an FSO upon reaching the 5-year commitment. For those who have left the FSO position, what are they involved in now? Great question. Yeah, so I could tell you a bit just for the sake of time. We've actually gone over our session, and I do want to take some live questions from those of you who would like to engage that way. Where do I even begin? Trajectory. So the first, when you come into the Foreign Service Office, USAID Foreign Service, again, you have that 5-year service commitment. After the 5-year service commitment, it is on you if you'd like to continue and seek tenure within USAID's Foreign Service, or if you'd like to leave and pursue other opportunities. And there's been, a mix, like dependent upon your life, life situations, family, right? You may decide to continue your career with USAID's Foreign Service, and a lot of our Payne alum actually have. And by Payne alum, I mean those who have onboarded with USAID Foreign Service. Again, we had our first cohort 2013, so we've been growing and moving since then. We have so much so to all of our Payne alum who are still employed at USAID. There's an affinity group at AID called the Payne Fellowship Network. And the Payne Fellowship Network is composed of all the Payne Fellows who are alum of the Payne Fellowship program, graduate program. So they work in various capacities. We have some who have just quite a few actually are rising to the rank of senior now, considering we've been around for about 10 going on 11 years now. Who have risen to the rank of like senior management, et cetera, there at AID in their respective pieces. So it really just depends upon your interest and what you want for, I guess, yourself and also your family, possibly depending upon the individuals you're considering, right? As well, there's a host of benefits for pursuing a career in the Foreign Service and keeping a career in the Foreign Service. One of them is, housing overseas is paid for. So when you're at post, you're not paying for housing and you're, still reaping the benefits of your salary, which is, great. And other things as well. If you have children, there's tutors and international schools that are all covered. There's a whole host of other fringe type of benefits that you get for being an FSO, and which entices many to stay with USAID. Now, for those who do leave, they tend to go to be consultants, to go to other agencies, state, USDA, NGOs, or corporate entities that have close, relations or work dealings, with the respective development field and agencies and things. So yeah, it really just depends. And we actually had an earlier session, probably 2 weeks ago, where we talked about the life and career of within USAID and the life of a Payne Fellow. And we had retired and current employees of USAID and Payne Fellows join that session to talk about that piece. I invite you all to visit our YouTube to catch the recording of that session there. It's very informative. Question here: if we've been out of school for a while now, do we still have to submit the financial aid statement? Yes, that is a required section. You will have to submit both the statement of financial need, the 400-word statement there, and the FAFSA student aid report. That is required for anyone, and mainly because remember, you apply separately to graduate school from our fellowship program, and the graduate institutions are still going to require the submission of the FAFSA. So you'll need to do that anyway, especially with the timing of our fellowships, right? So we do require that, and then that is a component in, which is reviewed in the selection process there. Let's see. Question. Let me see. Does Payne recommend applicants apply to a certain number of graduate programs? Yeah, so no, we actually, so when it comes to the graduate program component, we don't say, oh, you have to, or, apply to 3 or 2 or X, Y, and Z. What we do say is that you apply separately to the graduate programs, and that you must have you must start graduate school in fall 2024. So if you are looking at highly competitive programs, we caution to that piece. Well, no, we don't caution to that piece. Again, apply. If you're applying to our fellowship, you're a highly competitive individual. So let me take that back. Retract. If you are looking at highly competitive programs, so we're talking like our Harvard, our Columbia, especially, and you're not sure, like just in applying, again, I don't want to generalize. You'd always want to have your backups. Essentially, is where I'm going. I'm not phrasing this right, Maya, but you always want to have you want to have your backups. So in whatever instance, just because depending upon the timing of you applied, if you applied early decision or traditional of said programs, you don't know what the academic program or what their timeline is for admissions and sending out the award notifications are. So we've had individuals who applied to one school only, and that was it. And there's been cases of the good and bad in that. individuals who did that and were admitted, and individuals did that and weren't admitted, and then had to apply. And, we're running up on deadlines for the institutions because of the award notification of our fellowship as well. So again, we don't caution, oh, apply to one or apply to a million or X, Y, and Z. What I will say is be intentional. Be intentional in everything that you do, including the applying to this fellowship program, right? Graduate, we do not reimburse for your application fees for any of your graduate programs that you apply to and that you're admitted to, including the ones that are confirmed with our backstop coordinators, or your enrollment fees. So app fees and enrollment fees are not covered by our fellowship program, again, because those are processes that you had to you apply separately to that piece, and you must be in a confirmed program in order to receive our award. So be intentional, right? You don't want to spend, a lot of, $1,000 on applying to 6 different programs. But you also don't want to limit yourself to just, 2 or 3 highly competitive programs. And please, everyone, names are cool. Names are amazing. And by names, I'm not talking about your individual name, like which your parents named you, et cetera, anything like that. I'm talking about institution names, right? IV, large PWIs or HBC, names are cool. It's great. Focus on the end goal, right? What you want to actually study, how said program, in graduate school, I can tell you, in graduate school especially, you want to be at a program where it makes sense all around, right? And you want to make sure that you are supported during that time outside of our fellowship, because of course, yes, our staff will be there to support you financially, especially, but where the program can actually support you as well, because at the end of the day, guess what? If you get our fellowship, you still have the job. So we're not gonna, ding you, like there's no additional dings or anything. So make sure that you are choosing a program that you're truly committed to, that you're truly passionate about, at a school that makes sense and works for you, be it your family, be it for you for the next 2 years, whatever there. So long as it's at it's a US based institution, it's 2-year full-time and it's accredited, I mean, in an area of relevance, of course, you're good to go, right? I don't far too often we see individuals chase the name. And again, I'm not disparaging against applying to any sort of institution, be it HBCU, Ivy, large PWI, X, Y, and Z, but really look at the greater breadth of programs out there, because sometimes the smaller programs might be more beneficial to your growth, to your development, and to the things that you're actually interested in, and the competencies that may actually transfer over into your backstop, just as well as the large programs at other large name schools and stuff. So I'll get off my soapbox there. Let's see. There are another question. This is a great question. Are you able to defer if something happens prior to the fall 2024 semester? Would you have to reapply for the 2025 cohort? That is so the fellowship program, Payne, we do offer deferral for a few things, and those are if you are a recipient of Fulbright English ETA, and that'll be a 1-year deferral. We only also, if you are awarded a deferral, it's only for 1 year. If it needs to be extended, you will have to reapply. But Fulbright ETA, military service, or extenuating circumstances, including death, medical, and things that were outside of the fellow's control there. Great question. Thank you for that. What are the rules to being employed at USAID? Example, drug history, renouncing dual citizenship, things like that. Sorry, everyone. Realize I've just been talking and I haven't taken a sip of water the entire time. So yes, so for USAID, all of our fellows do go through two big pieces actually. TS clearance and medical clearance. So we'll do, once you're notified of the fellowship award and you've returned the signed notarized contract to us, and we've gotten that over to our colleagues at USAID, We'll set up a series of onboarding sessions with said colleagues at AID, and we'll disseminate the clearance paperwork and information, et cetera, there. All of our fellows must receive TS clearance, top secret clearance, and I believe it's class 1, world class. I think it's like class 1. I could be wrong. But worldwide availability in regards to medical clearance. And we'll, again, in the onboarding process, we'll have representatives there. You can ask them questions. We'll go through, talk about the forms, et cetera, and who your points of contacts are for said forms. Drug history, we do not, so I'm trying to figure out how to best. We understand that there's a lot of states in where there's been decriminalization or recreational use of cannabis or marijuana or other substances there. If it's still federally illegal, we ask that, and you are consuming or using or have a history of use or consumption or anything with any items there. If it's still federally illegal, we ask that you stop using any drugs or anything like that, and wait a year to apply to the fellowship program. Because again, the use of illegal and illicit drugs will come up and will flag in the clearance process there. Renouncing dual citizenship. So we don't require dual citizens to renounce their dual citizenship. What we do require, now you will in the security clearance process, and we'll talk about that. Well, once you're onboarded as a fellow, we'll really go into the depth about security clearance. But you will have to list all of your foreign national contacts, family, friend, like if you have like a strong relation there. And again, our colleagues at AID will cover that with our the awarded fellows there. You're not required to renounce your other citizenship. You are required to you can only use your U.S. citizen your U.S. citizenship status essentially during the culmination of essentially the next 7 years. if you really look at it, right, the 2 years for the graduate fellowship and then the 5-year service commitment, you will have to use your U.S. citizenship there because you'll be a U.S. Federal employee, foreign service officer there. Great question. If someone is already in their master's program, will they have to restart a new master's program if they get accepted? So if you're already in a master's program, yes, the Payne Fellowship cannot be used to complete an current graduate students or matriculating graduate students degree program. So you should, if you're a current graduate student, you should be completing your degree by May 2024 and looking to start your second master's in fall 2024, so that August 2024 timeline period there. Also, if it's your second master or your second or third advanced degree there, it must be in a completely different area of relevance from your first advanced degree. Okay. Oh, wow. I'm surprised I got through all the questions. They were really coming in. They were really good questions, everyone. I'll pause there to see if anyone in the audience have any questions, anyone want to speak up or anything, or get back actually to the area where I was. Okay, we're actually here. Okay, no, I actually have a couple more slides. I know we've completely blown past the time, but I feel it's very important and I appreciate the questions, and I feel it's a learning opportunity for everyone. And hopefully some of the questions that were asked answered some of those of you who are on the calls, if you were thinking about it, or even if you weren't thinking about it. So where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us with the fellowship timeline. So really quick, just to run through it, May 2024 to August 2024. Again, our Payne Fellows will attend Howard University for a 1-week orientation. Then they'll begin their 9-week congressional internship in DC. So the total 10-week summer experience prior to starting graduate school. From August 2024 to May 2025, first year of graduate school, you're excited, you're, studying all these interesting things, working towards, all these amazing advanced degrees, phenomenal. May 2025, August 2025, our Payne Fellows participate in a 10-week overseas internship at a USAID mission. Please note that each internship experience is different, and fellows work on a variety of issues and projects in different sections of the mission, mostly in an area of relevance to the fellows' career backstop choice. Then they return August 2025 to May 2026. And for their second and last year of graduate school, you get through there, you're excited. Oh my gosh, I graduated in May, can't wait. Oh my gosh, I start working for USAID immediately after. This is great. And after that, the induction. Payne Fellows are inducted into the USAID Foreign Service to commence their career as a Development Foreign Service officer. And again, remembering that all of our Payne Fellows have a 5-year minimum service obligation. And ta-da, the end of the presentation. So again, I think we have a couple. Yes, absolutely. They're coming in. Can we get, yes, you absolutely can get in touch with me offline. I was supposed to drop in this email address. So this is our general email address and I also check this box in our program manager. Program managers also check this and respond to any inquiries that you may have. paynefellows@howard.edu. And then for those of you who have more, specific questions that you want to ask one-off about graduate program or clearances or partnerships or anything like that, here is my my work email address where you can contact me. And please also note that our program manager will be opening up for one-on-ones. They're about like 15-minute one-on-ones this month. So please visit our website to learn more about setting those up, or email paynefellows@howard.edu, and the staff will work with you in coordinating. With that, I'll pause, stop, and say thank you. For those of you who have to hop off, I completely understand. Any of you who have any additional questions, please feel free to raise your hand, speak up. Okay, excellent. Well, because no one has any additional questions, I'm going to stop the recording. And again, you'll be able to catch this recording on our YouTube within 48 hours. Please give us some time. Stop recording there.